And I'm joined now by Republican Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma. He is the deputy whip for the Republican Conference. Congressman, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So you guys are getting a lot of heat for leaving. Why did you leave? Why not vote?
First of all, we'd finished our business, what we'd scheduled to do, which was to pass the appropriations for the Veterans Administration, over $80 billion, well above what the president wanted to do, military construction, and provide $1.1 billion for Zika, something that Democrats did. So we did the things that we were scheduled to do.
But, Congressman, you didn't vote on guns, and that's obviously what the sit-in was about. But that's obviously what Democrats are trying to force, and that's obviously at the center of a big national debate right now.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the gun issue. The issue itself did come before the Senate this week, and it failed. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to bring up legislation in the House that has already failed in the Senate, but has to pass both bodies. Second, the legislation came up actually yesterday in the Appropriations Committee, appropriately so. It was a Democratic amendment to one of the appropriations bills. They lost 31-6. Two of their own members actually voted with the majority party. So they've failed because they don't have the votes and they don't have enough support in the other body.
Well, but Congressman, let's talk about the Senate.
This is all about politics, not about legislation.
Since you raise the Senate, let's talk about what happened in the Senate today. A test vote did pass a compromise measure by Senator Susan Collins. Would you support that piece of legislation?
I haven't had a chance to look at it. There's not a lot of sense looking at Senate language that hasn't passed until it's actually submitted and sent over to the House. So I'll be happy to look at it. I have a lot of respect for Senator Collins, and she's usually a bridge between the two parties. But again, I'm not going to comment on legislation I haven't seen.
Well, as you know, a key part of it is this no-fly, no-buy piece that has been, it seems like, gotten a fair amount of bipartisan support. Should that be a part of any piece of legislation, and could you support that?
It depends on the nature of the list. Yes, if we can refine the list, which is shot full of inaccuracies. As a matter of fact, the ACLU has come out against using this list for anything because there are so many innocent people on it. You're not told how you're put on the list. You're not told how you can get off the list. You get no due process. And when you've got people, John Lewis has been on this list at one point. So it's clearly not an accurate tool. Now, it's better than nothing, I suppose, but you need to be awfully careful when you take away the rights of American citizens. You need to know you actually have got somebody that legitimately is on the list. So there's a lot of questions about this, but I also think there's a willingness to try and work on it.
As you know, though, Democrats are using this to rally their base. Secretary Clinton has tweeted about this. This is an election year, and it seems like right now House Republicans are on defense. So how do you get back on offense? Should House Speaker Paul Ryan hold a vote?
Well, no, I wouldn't. Not on this legislation. I would make it go through the regular process where it's actually drawn up and examined in detail and tough questions are asked. That's how you move legislatively. And frankly, the Democrats are very fortunate that they did not succeed. This was all about politics, and they admit it. But had they succeeded, if you establish this as a precedent, what if Republicans had behaved like this during the passage of Obamacare, legislation that's important to them? Try to shut down the facility, break every rule. I mean, you're not allowed to film on the floor. You're not allowed to wave placards on the floor. You're not allowed to conduct demonstrations on the floor. These are rules, by the way, that are routine in the House under Democratic leadership or Republican. So I don't think you actually can make the legislative process work by breaking the rules. I suppose you can make the political process work. And that's what this was all about, politics, not about serious legislation.
Well, let me get your reaction to the other big story today. Of course, the Supreme Court divided on the immigration ruling. A lot of folks saying that is only going to energize Latinos. More Latinos will register to vote. This could ultimately help Democrats and hurt Donald Trump. What do you make of that?
Well, I think you have to look at any Supreme Court case. First, is this a constitutional issue or an immigration issue? In this case, honestly, it's both.
But on that political point, Congressman, does this hurt Donald Trump, given that he's struggling already with that voting bloc?
I don't think we ought to look at Supreme Court cases that way. I mean, I really think the Supreme Court is there to interpret the law. And had Justice Scalia been alive, it would have been a 5-4 defeat. Every lower court decision has been against this so far. It'd go back to another lower court where it is. So, look, I grant you there's a legitimate constitutional debate because there are justices on both sides. But what I think I really really got out of today is that Mitch McConnell was really wise to say, let's let the American people have a voice. They'll have that voice in November, fully knowing, that you'll get a very different Supreme Court if Senator Clinton wins as opposed to Donald Trump. And that's probably the way it's best decided. Let the American people make the choice.
Congressman Cole, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.